Jenny was always aloof and paranoid towards me, yet her will was full of mentions of me after she died. It wasn't until I found that old phone of hers from 10 years ago that I realized her obsessive love for me. By accident, I went back to when I was 18, the year Jenny was still a waitress. When she spotted me, her brows furrowed, her tone filled with disdain. "What are you doing here? This is no place for someone like you. Get lost." Yet I saw her subtly tidying her slightly wrinkled uniform. Suddenly, I inexplicably heard her inner thoughts. "Wow, I can't believe I saw him today. But I look so dirty and ugly, he probably thinks I'm gross. I dream about him every night. I'm about to explode." Turns out, 18-year-old Jenny was just as stubborn. Not minding the grease on her, I hugged her by the neck. "Jenny, I have a kissing syndrome. Can you help me with it? Lately, I've been feeling a bit scattered, not sleeping well. I forgot if I took the sleeping pills, so I took them again, upping the dose." Holding that battered phone, the screen locked on the bottom of the memo. There's this sinking feeling in my body. The next time I opened my eyes was the day Judy confessed her feelings to me. Everyone around chanted for us to get together. Judy thought my silence was from speechless excitement since I'd supposedly crushed on her for 3 years. As she tiptoed up to kiss me, I dodged just in time, glaring at her. She looked shocked. "What's wrong?" Looking around at the surroundings, I realized I had gone back to being 18. I hadn't yet been with Judy. My family hadn't yet gone broke. And Jenny, she wasn't dead. I scanned around, trying to spot that familiar figure, before eventually slipping away from the scene. I found Jenny in a diner. Inside, a petite figure in a red t-shirt and greasy apron was clearing tables. She seemed more mature than her peers, a quality the 28-year-old her didn't possess. At 28, she was composed and poised, a storming figure in the business world. I watched her for a while, until she cleaned the table and glanced out the window. When she saw me, her expression shifted from shock to joy, then back to indifference. I walked over slowly, meeting her evasive gaze. She subtly stepped back, brow furrowed with disdain. "What are you doing here? This isn't your kind of place. Get lost." Despite the bitter tone, I noticed her quietly tidying her slightly wrinkled clothes, trying to be more presentable. And then, out of nowhere, I heard her thoughts. "I look so dirty and ugly, he must really not like me. I dream of him every night. I'm gonna explode." So, she wanted to be my wife even at 18. Stubborn yet innocent. "What are you laughing about? We fix cars here, not smiles. Not your place to hang out." I stepped forward, not caring about the grease, hugging her neck. "Jenny, I have a kissing syndrome. Help me out, will ya?" This wasn't just a joke to mess with her. I looked at her seriously. Meeting her gaze felt like a lifetime ago. Last life, I never really looked into those eyes that loved me deeply. She jumped back instantly. "Nick, quit messing with me." Her face was cold, but internally, she was squealing like a gopher. Her heart raced. Being so close to him made her giddy. Taking a few steps back, I teased, "Guess I'll have to find someone else then?" Her icy demeanor shattered instantly. Her eyes filled with possessiveness. "You wouldn't dare," she said, her gaze dodging. "I mean, don't joke about stuff like that. And go find whoever you want, it doesn't concern me." She turned away. "One day, I'll get that stubborn mouth to admit it." I grabbed her hand in frustration, and before she knew it, held her head and kissed her boldly. "I'm being forced," she thought. "I need to push him away or I might lose control." Sensing her resistance, I pulled back from her lips. My fingers brushed the corner of her mouth, where I'd just bitten, pressing down. A woman who says one thing and means another deserves a little lesson. She let out a soft moan of surprise, a sound that was almost pleasant. Made me want to do even more wicked things to her. "Thanks for the treatment. It was nice." Jenny wiped the glistening corner of her mouth. Her eyes turned icy. "Don't do that again." I nearly lost myself. I just wanted to jump into his arms. She turned and went inside, locking the door as if to keep me out. "Jenny, you're gonna lose your husband behaving like this." In my past life, when the family company was in decline, Teetering on the brink of bankruptcy, my dad ended up in the hospital, leaving everything for me to handle. I heard about some big shot in G-City, capable of shaking the business world there. Tried to meet her multiple times, but it was futile. Eventually, I found out where she lived, planned to catch her at her door. It wasn't until the third day that I saw this so-called bigwig. Turned out to be Jenny, my old high school classmate. After not taking the college entrance exams, she dropped out and worked at the diner she part-timed at. Everyone doubted her, thought she'd be the least successful of our class, but she defied all those expectations. I thought surely we shared some kind of bond as seatmates and all. Why only somewhat familiar? Because back then, I was kinda arrogant and didn't treat her well. She was distant and cold, not welcoming to anyone. I found it boring and practically stopped talking to her. Heard bits and pieces of her through mutual friends over the years. After the first year of college, I heard she'd left the diner and headed south for work. After that, she vanished from our radar. Meeting again after all these years was awkward. Long time no see, Jenny. I chuckled awkwardly, feeling a little lost. The woman glanced at me softly and didn't say a word as she walked straight into her villa. Seeing she didn't close the door, I followed her inside. Jenny, can you give me some time? Can we talk? She suddenly stopped and I bumped straight into her. When Jenny turned to look at me, there seemed to be a flicker of emotion in her eyes. Though, maybe it was just my imagination. Her hand, about to lift, withdrew again. You have a minute. Hearing this, I knew I had a shot, so I hurriedly laid out my thoughts. Just as my time was up, I finished talking. But Jenny stayed silent, staring at me. Jenny? It seemed her mind was elsewhere, but after a few seconds of pressing her lips together, she invited me in to talk more. Jenny offered me a marriage deal. 1, to help save my company from its dire need, and 2, for me to fend off the unwanted suitors lining up at her door. As abrupt as it sounded, I understood. With someone as outstanding as her, it's natural there'd be many trying to hitch their wagon to her star. She gave me 3 days to think it over, though I ended up giving her my answer the next day. We got our marriage certificate the following day, and within a month we had a wedding. My company, just like that, was saved. After the wedding, Jenny preferred an hour of cold showers in the bathroom and never touched me. Her attitude towards me remained icy. I figured we were just business partners. That was until one night when someone spiked my drink. I couldn't help but try to seduce her, but she remained indifferent. Jenny, we're married. We have a life to spend together. Why do you keep pushing me away? Somewhere along the way, it dawned on me that I might like this cold beauty. No matter how aloof she was towards me, she always showed up first when I needed help. Each time I screwed up, she was there to fix it. There was no way she felt nothing for me. My hands wrapped around her waist. Help me, will you? She was, without a doubt, stirred. Her heart's yearning for me was obvious, but she held back. I kissed her lips. Her restraint crumbled instantly, and she wrapped her arms around my neck, melting into me. After that, the taboo turned torrid. But outside the bedroom, she remained distant, as if it were just a routine. It wasn't until she passed away that I learned she suffered from severe paranoia and had scars on her wrists from self-harm. The doctor said it was from cutting herself, explaining why she always wore long sleeves and insisted on doing anything intimate in the dark. Thinking it was just a transaction, her will mention me line by line. It was a confusing mix of emotions. While organizing her things at home, I stumbled across an old phone. I managed to charge it and surprisingly, it worked. There was no password, so I opened it easily. There were no apps, just a memo entirely about me, starting from when I was 15. Glancing at the top notes, I found they were quite recent. Finally married Nick. He hugged and kissed me first. I couldn't hold back. Sorry, I don't think I can fight it anymore. I love you. Tears fell from my eyes without me even realizing it. That stubborn person, as if saying I love you would kill her. Jenny, this lifetime, let me come to you. Every day I would go to the restaurant to find her. Jenny, kicking out customers, is this your service attitude? I'm going to complain. She looked distant and cold, like she was rejecting everyone. She glanced at me, her tone not very pleasant. Whatever. This time I had to keep it together, not lose my cool. Someone like me, a mess, doesn't deserve someone as good as her. She deserves the best in the world. There she goes being stubborn again. She's quite something, thinking she isn't the best for me. If you don't serve me, I'll starve, I said with teary eyes, tugging at her apron like a pitiful child, using all my skills to act cute. Please? Pretty please? Instantly, her eyes turned red at the corners. She looked at my hand with mock disgust, stepping away from my touch. She acted so well. She'd make a great movie star. She's got the looks for it too. Could definitely make it in Hollywood. So why did Nick insist on ordering with me? There are other servers here, right? Because you're the only one I know. I'm afraid I'll get ripped off. I only trust you. Plus, I rarely eat at places like this, and I don't know what's good, so I'm counting on you. The woman, still trying to act all aloof, suddenly jumped at that. She mulled it over before finally picking up the menu to recommend things for me. I sat back, delighted, and waited. Jenny, tired? How about joining me for a bite? With the restaurant past peak hours, I was basically the only customer left. Jenny, being quite obedient, took off her apron and sat in the corner, watching me eat. I chuckled quietly to myself. So youthful, so bad at hiding anything, one glance, and I'd know everything. She was luring me, yet keeping me at arm's length. Must be some split personality thing? Honestly, I wasn't even that hungry, but just to see her, I forced myself to eat something. Jenny, on the other hand, was extremely patient and watched intently for any reaction I had to the food. I leaned my head on my hand, watching her. Now I understood what feast for the eyes meant. How did I not see her beauty in our past life? Probably because back then so many people were chasing her. During high school, when we were desk mates, loads of guys would ask me to give her letters and gifts. I remember the first time I handed her a pink envelope. She couldn't stop a little smile from creeping at the corners of her lips. But the moment she opened it, her face changed. Her eyes turned as cold as the ice in an Americano. She gave the letter back to me, saying firmly, "Don't you have anything better to do? We're supposed to be studying, and you're messing with this nonsense." Got scolded and lectured for no reason. Back then, I silently cursed her to never get married in her lifetime. Funny how she did get married, and to me no less. I chuckled at the thought. The woman gave me a puzzled look in return. I didn't look away, met her gaze and lifted an eyebrow at her. She shyly turned away, her ears turning a shade of pink. Quite innocent, really. If anyone saw this, they might think I'm some kind of creep. Looking at the woman striking a pose, I could hardly keep from laughing. Too cute. All right, you can leave. What's the rush? After hanging out long enough, she was ready to kick me out. Classic. I didn't stick around much longer. I discreetly left a tip on the table. I got up and casually planted a quick kiss on her lips. It was so fast it caught her off guard. Consider it payment for your exclusive service. Without waiting for her reaction, I pushed open the restaurant door and walked out, leaving Jenny completely bewildered. After getting my acceptance letter, I was lost in thought. I eventually went downstairs to have some tea with my dad. "Dad, I think I can get into a better school." My dad paused mid-pour, giving me a look that oozed pressure. "Oh? What do you mean?" I didn't bother with excuses, I just came out with it. "I'm not happy with these results. They don't meet my standards. I want to retake the exams." Instead of scolding me, he placed his rough, calloused hand on my forehead. "No fever." I was speechless. Is this really my dad? He took a sip of his tea. "Don't you know yourself? You barely got into this college, and it's the same one as Judy. Isn't that what you always wanted?" The mention of her made me feel bitter. I must have been out of my mind back then, actually liking someone like that. "Dad, you don't ask for much, just that I'm happy. With you around, why should I have to try so hard?" Looking at my father, his hair still black, reminded me of my previous life. Judy and I were nearly engaged then. I thought we'd walk into the next stage of life hand in hand. Never expected she would betray me with Tim. They teamed up to bring down my dad's company. I clearly remember her looking superior, arm intertwined with Tim's, disdain in her eyes as she watched me fall to the ground. Nick, did you really think you were some sort of big shot? This is as far as your luck takes you. Oh, Jenny, don't bully Nick. He might be on the streets tomorrow. That whole scene sent shivers down my spine. My youth wasted. My best friend and the love of my life broke me together. That rainy night, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I was almost deranged. They left, cursing under their breath. My dad's heart condition acted up from the stress, and I often saw my mom quietly crying in the hospital's corner. It's like they turned gray overnight. The guilt ate me alive. I was the reason for their pain. The company, I had to bring it back to life. I couldn't do it alone. Thankfully, Jenny was there. I realized how useless I felt, wasting university years on love, learning nothing worthwhile. And I didn't take the chance to learn from my dad. I have to make it right this time, not just for Jenny, but for myself. Holding on to my dad's arm, I earnestly said, "Dad, let me retake the tests. Your son has big ambitions. Shouldn't you be happy?" He shook his head, baffled. "Can't argue with you. Whatever you decide, I'm behind you." So he agreed. This meant no Judy, no lousy school. And I could study with Jenny. But there was one problem. How do I get Jenny back into school? Even though I know she could succeed without further schooling, facing society's harsh reality early might lead her astray. Maybe her stubbornness is from some unspoken experiences. Her future could be bright. I want that for her. Dad, I have a favor to ask. He poured me a cup of tea, handing it over. What's cooking up in that head of yours? I'd like you to anonymously sponsor a student. She was top of her class but had to quit because of family issues. Truth is, I still don't know her full story. Even after 3 years of marriage, I never met her family. I never asked, and I regret that. Dad said he'd look into it, and if all checked out, he'd be open to nurturing such talent. With that settled, all that was left was Jenny's side of things. When I returned to the restaurant, she wasn't there. A new face greeted me. "Hi, where's Jenny?" The person quickly straightened up. "Oh hey, I'm Jenny's friend. She swapped shifts with me this afternoon. She's likely working at the bar now." I frowned. Was she really that strapped for cash? Why so desperate? "Mind if I ask, is something going on?" She seems to be working non-stop. A girl not even 18 yet, burdened with so much. Oh, Jenny has had it rough. Her mom left when she was 13. At 16, her dad beat her, hung her up for 5 hours straight. I would have ended it by then. But she has a grandma she's very attached to, and she's sick, needs a lot of money. I didn't quit school because I didn't like it, but Jenny quit from the sheer weight on her shoulders. Hearing this, my heart felt a tight squeeze. Memories filled my mind. Throughout the years we were classmates, her parents never showed up to meetings or events. Not too long ago, at the Centennial Vow ceremony, every kid was surrounded by their parents, smiles and flowers, wishing them a bright future. And there was Jenny, in the corner, stealing glances at their happiness. 16 years old, that was a couple of years ago. No wonder she disappeared for a week. Reflecting, I remembered her wrists, red marks barely hidden, seen only when her sleeves accidentally shifted. I asked her then why she'd wear a hoodie in summer. She just looked away. I didn't push it. If this is just what's come to light, there must have been more. She's probably felt moments of near breakdown countless times. After getting the bar's location from this guy, I went to find her. All I wanted was to hold her tight. When I got to the bar, Jenny was getting harassed by a bunch of guys. "Hey, ain't you the top student from our school? How'd you end up as a bar girl? That's some chest you got there, wearing such tight clothes just to lure guys. Huh? Come have a drink with us, you'll get a nice tip." I could barely recognize them. They were our classmates from our year. One of them was Tim. Since I came back, I hadn't contacted him at all. "He isn't worth it anyway. Sir, please have some respect." "I'm not a bar girl, just a server," Jenny said, dodging his hand emotionlessly. Tim looked frustrated. "Why play innocent? Didn't you drop out 'cause you hooked up with a rich kid? Be glad I'm not calling you trash. She's all nice and polite, but she was never like that with me. She was mean to me, I stepped forward, grabbed the drink from his hand, and spilled it on him. "Watch your mouth, or people might think you're eating in the bathroom," I said. Shocked, Tim screamed, "Nick, what's wrong with you?" I felt no guilt seeing him like this and shrugged. "Just didn't like you." Others considered stepping in but held back. They didn't know exactly who I was, but they knew I had a strong background they didn't want to mess with. If my dad found out they'd bullied me, their businesses would be in trouble. "Why are you guys hesitating? Go get him. He's bullying me," Tim shouted, but they didn't dare move. Meanwhile, Jenny quietly stood protectively in front of me, the tension exciting her. Tim tried another approach, grabbing my hand. "Nick, we're best friends. How could you?" I told him these same words at 28, and he tossed my hand aside with disdain. "Who wants to be your friend? You're just a pawn, or else I wouldn't bother with you." I shook off his hand. "Who wants to be friends with you? Jenny's my best friend. Friends first, then lovers, then partners." Without more drama, I pulled Jenny away from the scene. Walking through the alley behind the bar, Jenny broke free from my hold. Slightly confused, I turned to her, only to be met with her cold stare and icy words. "I'm not done with my shift, and you shouldn't be here. Just moments ago you wanted to treat me to dinner, but now this attitude?" I let out a laugh, frustrated. "What's the point of going back? Isn't it enough harassment already?" I asked, wondering if she secretly had any rich dudes making offers behind closed doors. What if she was really desperate for money and got lost in all this? "Stay out of my business," she snapped. I decided to push further. "Fine. How about I support you? 10 grand a month?" Her eyes widened. Did I hear that right? My husband to be supporting me? Face turning red, she cleared her throat. "Your idea's dangerous. Don't say stuff like that to others. It's late now, go home and don't look for me again." In front of me, she deleted my contact, right from the conversation where she kept returning the car repair money, which I always refused. Oh, so this is how it is? I was genuinely annoyed. Deleted me in front of my face? Fine, no more contact? I headed back into the bar and got a private room. Jenny, following behind, looked furious. "What's your plan?" she demanded, still holding my hand. I wasn't friendly either. "Why do you care? Who are you to me? You won't let me support you, so I'll find someone else. Okay?" Sometimes I feel like she needs a bit of provocation. Keeps her from being so stubborn. Seeing the manager bring in a line of male models into my room, Jenny remained outside looking furious. "Nick, these are the best in our bar. Enjoy," the manager said before shooting Jenny a glance as he left. "What are you standing there for? Get back to work. Get caught slacking and you'll lose pay." Jenny bit her lip, stepping back a bit. But I knew she hadn't left. She was peeking in. Why do those girls catch his eye? They're nothing compared to me. Smirking at Jenny's inner thoughts, I picked a girl from the lineup and gestured for her to come over. "You come here," I said, observing the outside carefully. "Kiss me." As I said it, the door flew open. Jenny's icy gaze landed on the girl about to kiss me. "Get lost." Jenny, fists clenched, her presence so strong. The girl was intimidated but glanced at me. I waved them away. "Why are you butting into my business now?" I asked, intrigued. "I told you before I have a kissing syndrome. Why else would I want to support you? Since you don't want it, I need someone else to cure me." Complete BS about the syndrome, but the desire for a kiss was real. In our past life, she never properly kissed me. I got up and shut the door, pressing her against it. "Now that you've sent them away, do you owe me something?" My lips barely touched hers, teasingly, making Jenny's breathing unsteady. Suddenly, her hands cupped my face, and she kissed me fiercely, like punishing me. Her eyes closed while mine stayed open, watching her in her moment of passion. Her eyes opened, meeting mine. My pulse raced. Her grip on me tightened as if to claim me. Finally, she released me, pressing her forehead to mine, catching her breath. Panting slightly when I regained, she attacked again, and once the kiss was over, Jenny could barely stand. Good thing I held her waist tight. Wiping the corner of my mouth, voice husky. "When you're sick, just come to me. I won't charge you, but it's only for helping you get better." I raised an eyebrow. She fell for my lame excuse. But I guess that's progress, right? At least she's not pushing me away anymore. I lifted her chin gently with my finger. All right, thanks then. But shouldn't you save my number back in your phone? She pulled out her phone and quickly punched in my number. I can't even remember it myself, but she's got it down. Jenny, just admit it, you're head over heels for me. All right, I won't disturb you at work. See you next time. She gently responded. I knew she wouldn't leave with me now. She needs to earn money, but I've got my own stuff to take care of. Just as I was about to leave, I heard her inner voice shout out, "Husband, you're so sweet. It's addictive." She should really let that inner charm shine through. But she's forcing herself to grow up and live a stifling life. After leaving the bar, I went to the hospital where Jenny's grandma is being treated. I went to her room first. A small, frail body lay on the bed. You'd think it was a child's if you didn't look closely. I bet grandma's endured a lot, especially with a son like that. But thankfully, she has a wonderful granddaughter. In my past life, I think Jenny moved south to work because grandma didn't make it. She wouldn't have left her grandma otherwise. I consulted a doctor. They said as long as the surgery goes well, everything should be fine with some good recovery. It's just that the surgery and medicine require a hefty sum. I'm just a recent high school graduate. I can handle small expenses, but for such a big amount, I'll need to ask my dad. I mentioned about helping Jenny to him before. This counts. Dad's okay with it, but convincing Jenny is a different story. It'll take some maneuvering on Dad's part. Grandma's resting, so I didn't stay long. Before leaving, I deposited $100,000 in her medical account. Jenny wouldn't accept it if I gave it directly, so this was the best way. When I got home, I talked it through with my dad. He agreed outright and said he'd handle it. Business minds are sharp, after all. People know I'm a rich kid, but they don't know Dad's identity is hidden for security reasons. Except for Judy. She tried hard to get close. She's approached me multiple times recently, but I keep her away. Dad met with Jenny, offered to sponsor her education, and asked her to name any condition. But after graduating, she'd have to work for his company. I thought Jenny's pride wouldn't agree to it easily. But Grandma suddenly got worse and needed immediate surgery. The cost was huge. So they signed the deal. Senior year started early. Jenny sat by the window working through math problems. I walked over with a smile. "Hi, is this seat available?" Without looking up, she said no. But realizing my voice, she looked up in surprise. Why are you here?" I pulled out a chair and sat down. "Want to journey toward a better future with you. Plus, my cure's here, how could I leave?" She started to say something, and I placed my finger on her lips. "You're almost there, focus." She went back to her work, but her pen stayed idle. I remembered when we sat together before. She was so cool, called me a fool. Maybe her explanations were too brief for me to understand. After that, I never asked her anything again. I handed her a study guide from my bag. "Jenny, could you explain 3 problems to me every day until finals?" She paused, then nodded. Busy days flew by quickly. This year, we both studied hard. My physics was weak, really pulled my score down. But thanks to Jenny's constant drills, I improved a lot. Aside from the sports day, all we did was study. That day, I couldn't help myself. I'd been eyeing Jenny forever. While on a walk in a little grove, we heard some, interesting noises. It made us both blush and our hearts race. I pulled Jenny aside, pinning her against a wall. "Jenny, I want to kiss you." That's the first slip-up in a year. After results came out, Jenny and I got into the same college. Only heaven knows what I went through. She's a genius, I was just average. Chasing her, improving myself, I gave it my all. "Jenny, you promised if I got in, you'd date me." She gently patted my head. "When have I lied to you?" She's lied plenty. She doesn't remember being so contrary before. "Well, then give me a kiss." Later on, Grandma fully recovered and moved in with my family. Gives my grandma a companion too. When Jenny knew who helped her, she wasn't too shocked. It wasn't hard to guess. Otherwise, I wouldn't have signed that deal so easily. This girl's got smarts. We started college together, and I knew we'd keep going on our journey. I heard Judy hooked a rich guy in college, but his wife found out. Beat her badly, left her crippled. Gave her a bad reputation and she couldn't find work after graduating. Ended up living anonymously in another city. And Tim? Heard he became an escort and married an ugly rich lady. But none of that matters now. Jenny proposed right after she graduated. The wedding's on hold though. She wants to earn enough, reach her goals, give me some security. But I believe in her, the time will come soon. In less than 2 years. She repaid my dad's money, started her own firm, hit new heights without any help. I knew it. She'd succeed no matter what path she took. On our wedding day, she cried her heart out, made me laugh. She's such a dear. From now on, it's my job to love her dearly. She'll forget all those painful memories. Dear Nick, will you marry me? I will.